Hello, my name is Richard Lai. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Engadget Chinese. Welcome back to the Yahoo Finance All Market Summit Asia. And this is actually our second edition. The theme this year is New Challenges, New Opportunities. Once again, we've brought back some of the brightest minds in the business world to get a rare glimpse into their insights and best practices here in Asia. To check out more content from the All Market Summit Asia, please visit hk.finance.yahoo.com. The panel we'll be talking about today is the growing challenges and opportunities for ESG. And of course, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So joining us today, we have Ms. Helen Amos, who is the Head of Sustainability at JLL Hong Kong. We've also got Mr. Ben Wong, who's the Head of Open Innovation at Eureka Nova, which is under New World Group. And last but not least, we've got Mr. Garrick Lau, who's the Head of Business Innovation and Shared Value at南豐Group. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And why don't we kick off with talking about the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN, because I believe many companies actually base their ESG initiatives on these 17, well, some of these 17 goals. So I guess, Helen, why don't we start off with JLL? Like, which of these goals that your company is working on are the most challenging, and are there those that you think need more support?
Well, thank you very much for having me on today. And just to talk about the sustainability goals for JLL, we've chosen a whole range of ones that suit our business. And I think that's what a lot of organizations do. It's about picking and choosing those that fit the organization to make sure that you can actually have value. I'd say the key ones for us are around equality, development, along with all sorts of issues around that kind of social improvement around the developments that we work on and that we manage for clients. I think if we look at it, what it looks like in Asia, the key challenges sit around those ones of inclusivity, because we're not necessarily as advanced as a lot of other nations in those. But I think when we look at it more broadly, and I take it away from JLL, that those goals, they have so much interconnectivity, and we've seen a lot of commitments around decarbonisation and the move away from needing to invest in coal. But actually for our region, that move of investment could actually cause a lot of challenges to those economies that really rely on that coal as their industry. And so that whole piece really needs to be looked at as a single or interconnectivity of those issues, rather than just focusing on one or two, because one actually could cause a lot of problems in other areas.
Very good points there. And what about you, Garrick? I guess you have some overlapping areas with JLL.
Yeah. I think for us the most material goal, I think, is the 11 SDGs 11 is the sustainable communities and cities. For us in Hong Kong, maybe you guys would know that around 60% of the emissions comes from buildings operation. So I guess we, as a real estate developer, we are in the main crux of the emission, how we tackle, how we scale down scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 in order to meet the net zero target. So I think our new building design, our current buildings refurbishment, and all our incentives program with tenants, we all steer towards this 2050 net zero target. But I think the most challenging part for us would be something that we may have full control on, is about the source of the energy, source of the electricity that's provided by the utility and the grids in Hong Kong. We are expecting there would be a lot more portion of the electricity would be from renewable resources. At the current stage, for example, our new project, the ASI in Kai Tak, we already have the largest solar panel installation among all the commercial buildings in Hong Kong already. But that only amounts to just 1 to 2% of the total energy used for that building, which is a 2 million square feet complex. But I guess we need more offsite, or we need more renewable energies from the grid, so they may be able to source from the region, maybe not just in Hong Kong, in the region, that would enable us to be more net zero ready. So that would be our challenge and expectation.
Excellent there.
Yeah.
And Ben, you're with Eureka Nova, which is the open innovation arm of New World Group. And I guess it's a little different from our two other fellow guests here. Which sustainable goals are you guys tackling?
Yeah, very important goals, all 17. At New World Development, we choose to be a little bit more focused on 4 areas. So we look at quality education, we look at good health, we look at partnership for the goals, but one of the most challenging one is actually goal 11, which is the sustainable cities and communities. Why is it so challenging, it's mainly because it's heavily tied to what's happening with the climate around us. I think we all understand that the IPCC has already said that for us to actually achieve 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, we need to decarbonize by half. Not by the end of the century, but within this decade. So this is a tall order. There's a lot of work cut out for all of us. And then I think within our industries, being heavily focused in property, we do have a big role to play. So how are we kind of achieving that? We're looking at the complete built life cycle of a building, whether it's design, how we construct, what type of material we're actually bringing in, and also looking at our existing buildings and how we manage the property and energy usage properly as well. There's a lot of smart technology out in the market that we can utilize and be able to save our energy consumption over time. These are kind of baby steps that we can take at the moment. But there's a lot more that we can look into, as I mentioned earlier. There's so much technology in how we can look at burying CO2 in material. There's carbon sequestration solutions out in the market. Hong Kong, being so property heavy, there's so much that we can learn from, our neighbors and overseas. So it is going to be a collective effort for this challenging goal. But hopefully, as we educate more people in the industry about this, it would be more of a team effort from everyone to be able to achieve and decarbonize by half at the end of this decade.
And Eureka Nova has some startups working on, directly fighting or working on net zero carbon.
That's right.
Any examples?
Yeah, exactly. So how Eureka Nova works is that we try to reverse engineer the whole open innovation journey. We spend a lot of time at looking at corporate goals and then try to identify certain pain points that business units are trying to achieve, and then go out there and see if there's any kind of emerging technologies that can help get us there faster by enabling technology. So with New World, we have very aggressive decarbonization goals. So that cannot be achieved by just doing the same thing or just improving a little bit of everything we do. We look for are there emerging solutions. So some of these emerging solutions we're looking at kind of low-hanging fruit things first, which is existing properties. Are we able to use energy meters? Are we able to use smart technology that's able to reduce our consumption of energy? So one example is a startup that we use where they're engaging employees in a building to be a part of this kind of sustainability effort of looking at the temperature, comfort of temperature within their workstation, being able to clock in and identify if they're in the building or not. If they are in the building, it's going to adjust to the thermal comfort that they want. If they're not, then that workstation is turned off. So we did a pilot on that, and we reduced, it was 38% in lighting consumption. And then air conditioning, which is a huge part of that, we reduced that by 19% in a very small pilot that we did. So because we were able to achieve those targets, and we were able to also calculate from a business sense the buyback of that technology, we were able to integrate that to a couple more floors. And as it continues to do well, we're able to kind of use those cases to do bigger pilots and bigger solutions for our tenants in the future.
Actually, Helen, I was going to ask you a similar, related question anyway, because obviously JOL has been around for quite some time, like literally hundreds of years, right? So I'm sure you have many properties that are managed by your team. And I was wondering, I'm sure you face similar challenges to Eureka Nova, New World, and I'm sure Nanfeng as well. Is it much more difficult? I'm sure the answer is yes, but like what kind of challenges they are? Or maybe I should rephrase this. Surely it's much more challenging to apply these carbon emission goals and sustainability goals on existing buildings versus building brand new ones with solar panels and whatnot. Can you tell us how you guys go about solving these issues?
And just to build on what both Ben and Garrick have said on that kind of those emissions, the built environment has such a role to play that we can't ignore it, and technology has a part to play. But I'm not sure it's the goal. That kind of it's the gold standard, but there's many things that we can do with the existing buildings, optimizing them, looking at where those low-hanging fruit lie. Often we don't manage our buildings that well, or we've got like latent technologies that we can change, such as lighting. LEDs for a lot of our clients are a key number, easy to change, easy to do, but actually can really bring down that consumption if you're a tenant in a building, because you don't actually have control of that whole building, especially air conditioning making up such a huge percentage, whereas you can't control that yourselves. So that kind of starting at a point of data and understanding where the consumption is. I can give an example of our office in OTP, in One Turkey Place, sorry. We did some sub-metering via a green partnership pledge with Swire, and we learned that 40% of our consumption is actually out of hours, which without that metering we would never have known, and we're not a kind of high consumer, and that we found out that comes from the servers. So actually optimizing the temperature or the performance of those and making sure that it's all designed for purpose, we can actually bring down that consumption quite substantially. So I think actually access to data is the key part at that granular level. And but to go on to what Ben's point about that at desk level, I think we need to change everybody's perception of what is comfort. We often see somebody's in a jumper and someone's like got nothing on in the office. And I think that kind of, we all have different requirements. So if we're able to really kind of optimize that temperature at that level, we'd probably see massive savings just through simple measures that are taken.
Now, and actually, just to quickly ride on that, JLL actually has a very, very aggressive goal, net zero carbon by 2030. So are there any aggressive initiatives that JLL is taking to make sure that happens? Because obviously you mentioned some of the low-hanging fruits, but I'd like to know more about some of the more challenging or more daring initiatives that JLL might be working on.
I think that's where our challenge lies, actually, because we are only the tenant in the space, in majority of the spaces we occupy. So really what we control is the lighting and the small power, and a little bit of AC if we've got additional cooling needed for server rooms, for instance. So actually the challenge is great for us to actually try and bring that down. And to the point at Garrick earlier on about the renewable energy, we don't have opportunities to install it in any of the spaces that we have because we are a tenant. And although we're starting to see a little bit where sometimes roofs are available to tenants to optimize, we're not seeing it enough to manage our consumption. So I think we also rely on decarbonisation of the grid a lot. But again, it's through education and really the simple things about just using the space as efficiently and as effectively as possible is where we're focusing. So, and hopefully technology comes along and has some silver bullet somewhere for us as well.
And Garrick, I guess Danfeng Group has some similar initiatives as well.
Yeah.
Are there any interesting ones that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think we do see any initiative we're proposing, we also think from the shared value angle. That means the business angle together with the environmental and social angle. So we are creating a tool called Net Positive Lease. So similar to what Helen just mentioned about the partnership with landlord, I think we also creating a win-win partnership kind of arrangement to redefine the tenants, landlords always on the zero-sum game mindset, but now we work together to achieve each other's ESG goals. So for environment, there would be guidelines, there would be incentive sharing, there would be data sharing, so to help us to be net zero ready. Until we have the more renewable energy available, we need to get ourselves ready, tenants and landlord first. And I think for Nanfeng, another thing we are trying is about the social measurement part. In terms of the net positive lease, we are also trying to do two things. One is a kind of micro materiality assessment. For example, in most of the listed companies, big companies, we have ESG report. We do materiality assessment to have stakeholders' voice in our decision-making process. But at times, these corporate level materiality may not be specific enough for location base, for just one property or just one project. So we would like to break this down into micro materiality so that, for example, when we have a new project in Kai Tak, we do special materiality assessment for the stakeholder engagement at Kai Tak. So we would know that area's needs.
And you're talking about the community.
Yes, that community. And when we have those needs in mind, the priority list, we also share with tenants. We also work together with tenants based on that list to have the programs to the support for the community. So the whole process gets engagement and the voice from the stakeholders. And we will not stop there yet. We would also do measurement because we think greenwash, impact wash is a very, very heated topic, hot topic, and then we need to do something about it. We need to we need to evaluate ourselves, keep learning, keep transparent to our stakeholders how we are doing on all the things that we claim we are doing. So there are social impact measurement. We use the SRI, social return on investment methodology, to do this measurement, and then we would share these data with our tenants. And then this reporting ready data would be a kind of landlord service that we can provide to our tenant. So if our trial will be, when we have more experience, we can roll out to all the major properties under南豐. So that would be a kind of a competitive edge for us. And we see that as share value. We see this sustainability and new projects as business opportunities. So that's how we integrate sustainability into our core business.
Do tenants actually take ESG into consideration when they find new places to rent?
Yeah, and thanks to JLL's report, we see that actually more than 70% of the tenants are expecting or already taken some kind of green lease, or what we say net positive lease kind of arrangement to expect the landlord to empower them to achieve their own ESG goals. And also there are greenium, like 7 to 10% of rental premium if the landlord can provide these services. And I think we, apart from those reports from our day-to-day discussion with our leasing team in UK, in Hong Kong, they are seeing these tenants request not just bringing the greenium, but also they are seeing tenants use this as a deal breaker. They would first ask you about the ESG provision first before they talk money, because before they talk rental. So I think it becomes a deal breaker and competitive edge for a lot of the landlords. Yeah.
And just to build on that point, we're seeing now that a lot of corporate tenants are actually coming with a checklist of things that they expect from a building that they're going to occupy. So it can be anything from a green lease to smart metering to all of those kind of criteria.
Charging,
yeah,
things like
exactly.
that.
It's that build up of what they expect to see in a building they want to take, because it aligns to their bigger goals. And I think that's the exciting part, that partnership and that piece of that we're seeing build in the market will really drive us forward, because a landlord needs a tenant to perform and a tenant needs a landlord, so we can't get there alone.
That's actually kind of quite sweet. Now, Garrick, good thing you brought up the social aspect of ESG, the big S over there. I was wondering if you can tell us more about whether the youth these days, they are taking ESG into consideration when they look at their career path or even entrepreneurship potentially. And I know you personally actually have great experience in helping or getting involved in youth development. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think now we are in a very interesting stage of development in terms of for the youth to choose what kind of career path they want to pursue. And I think before, like 2-3 decades ago, when we want to say, oh, we want some purpose in career, we want to do good, there would be an implicit expectation that you need to give up on your salary, you need to give up on your quality of life, or you need to sacrifice a lot in order to be the person you work with NGO or you work with other to do good. But I think now in the market, in the past 12 months, you will see all the big companies are expanding their sustainability teams, ESG teams. All the consultants are recruiting crazily. Anyone wants to, we'll train them. Just join us first, and then we will have the clients coming. And so when a lot of commercial entities are integrating sustainability into their business models, and there are a lot of new opportunities for youth to marry a decent decent paid job, which would be able to help them raise the family, and also they would be able to pursue their purpose, pursue their positive impact to the community, delivering their life goals. So they're now in their generation, they know these jobs are available, and they would be more motivated to prepare themselves to take these opportunities. So I guess many of them are very motivated, many of them are very purpose-driven, and a lot of the youngsters, when they come to visit our companies now, they talk a lot about ESG, how they can understand how social, environment, and business can be balanced, can be pursued in parallel for their career. And of course, they would prefer to be slashers, but I think more companies are more accommodating for them being slashers in terms of their job scope, in terms of the area of expertise, in terms of the area for development. And so we are adapting to each other, but I'm very optimistic about how the young can help this sustainability transformation for companies.
How can the younger people better prepare for the career paths related to sustainability then? Like, I guess there are dedicated courses these days, or do you have other suggestions?
Yeah, I think especially for Hong Kong, younger generation in the education system, they first need to believe that sustainability and business can be pursued at the same time. There's no zero-sum game. So now is the time that these two, you prepare for yourself, understand what is ESG, what is decarbonization, what is biodiversity, what is social impact measurement, and then at the same time you learn about business skills, marketing, sales, finance, IT, technology, innovation. These are all the necessary under business. If you want to run business, these are not separate topics. These are all the necessary topics, like you need to know accounting and marketing before. Now you need to know sustainability when you do business.
Now, Helen, you've actually, first of all, congratulations. You were actually promoted to your current title, which is Head of Sustainability in Hong Kong, literally a few weeks ago, right? But you've actually been working in this market on sustainability for over 18 years?
Yeah.
And
Shows my age.
No, not really. But I was wondering if you can share some insights on the kind of growth of this market over these so many years or so.
Short years, yeah. Well, I think when I graduated university, just to Garrick's point, these jobs didn't exist. So I came out of university to really wanting to do sustainability as I saw it and as I was taught it at university. But there just wasn't the demand in the market. And we slowly saw green building come in at the start. And then it was very slow and it was very stagnant. And I think COP26 last year and that whole buy-in from the finance sector really was the shift that caused it. The money followed the problem. We all knew what the problem was, but the money wasn't there. In Hong Kong, where energy prices are cheap, that's not easy to do. So when I arrived 12 years ago, I was like, I've entered a time warp. It was like, I can't even sell what I was selling before. So that movement and that shift in the finance sector, I think has made a real difference. And yeah, to Garrick's point about the people coming and wanting to get into sustainability, the opportunities are endless. You come with a good engineering background. We need that to meet the challenges of the built environment. You need to understand that fundamentals of how buildings operate to be able to optimize them and make them perform better. So it's that skill set, whatever you come with, has a great role to play in sustainability. And I think that's the really exciting thing for now.
Sounds like JOL is still hiring at the moment, so that's great. Stay tuned.
Not an advert.
Now, we've got just about enough time for one last question. How can Hong Kong learn from nearby regions when it comes to advocating ESG? How can we as a city do better? Maybe, Ben, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can do in Hong Kong. There's a lot of standards that we can learn from our neighbors on an international standard. But to me, one of the silver bullets, and there's only a few that we can kind of trigger to a certain degree, is renewable energy. And I think the panelists here today has already touched on it. Hong Kong currently uses 3.7% in terms of electricity consumption that is renewable. But just across the border, they're using at 27%. So there's actually a lot for us to catch up from a renewable energy standpoint and with electricity consumption. So I do believe that it is the low-hanging fruit for Hong Kong. It's not going to be easy. It will be absolutely challenging because it goes to an infrastructure question as well. So for me, I think that's something that Hong Kong needs to try to tackle right away.
How about you, Garrick?
I would like to suggest we take a look at UK's legislation. One of these is called Public Service Social Value Act, which was enacted like 10 years ago. It states the statutory body or other government departments, when they issue a contract to any vendors or contractors, the contractors need to bid with a social impact measurement report. So they will need to measure, we need to project what kind of social and environmental impact they would experience during the contract period. And the government would consider these as a prerequisite for the bidding and also as an assessment criteria for the awarding the tender. So I guess that takes some time for the market to learn about these measurements, and then eventually the market understand what this means, and also it induces a lot of the private sector to start measuring the social impact. And I think that's the kind of example that when government change a little bit of the rules of the game and then induce some ripple effects in the market. And I think for impact measurement, for ESG related taxes or other incentives, I think that would be very important role for the government to play.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Helen?
I've got another role that the government can play as well, because I think we, UK, Singapore, Australia, all have building codes that require operational performance to be measured. And to be, like, in Australia and in the UK, they actually, governments will not occupy buildings that don't have a certain operational performance. And so that really drives the market to actually lead the change and to be those buildings that sit at the top, because they want to attract those tenants. And I think that's something that the government can do quite easily. We already have EMSD asking the requirement for energy audits, but actually make it more mandatory and to display that performance. And Shenzhen actually have this scheme in place, and there is fines associated with it, which if you're not within that code bound. So that really does push the industry to move forward, and it gives opportunities for technologies to come to the market as well, because that's needed to facilitate this change in the market. So I think that, a governmental push on sustainability, especially with the 2050 plan, if we don't start now, we're not going to hit 2050. And yes, to Ben's point, renewable energy is vital, but we also need those incremental steps to get there while we try and sort out that infrastructure around renewables.
Well, excellent points from all three of you, and this is a good place for us to wrap up. Thank you so much, Helen, Garrick and Ben. And for everyone else out there, if you want to check out more content from the All Market Summit Asia, please visit hk.finance.yahoo.com. Thank you.